On today's episode, I'll get into a preview of the Hawks matchup with the Avalanche, the team's recent goalie struggles, and Taige Harding signing his ELC.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, do me a quick favor right off the jump by hitting that like button, hopping in the comment section below, and subscribing to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube, which is 100% free. It will not cost you anything and helps me out in a massive way in growing the platform. Quick reminder, again, that everything is always time-coded down in the description. So even if you're someone who's tuning into this episode following the puck dropping between the Blackhawks and the Colorado Avalanche here tonight, you can still go and listen to the other topics that I'm going to get into on today's show without having to scroll through the bottom. You can just easily click to that point in the episode because everything is time-coded. But happy Wednesday, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Hawks return to action here tonight with a lovely 8:52 p.m. Central Time puck drop against the Colorado Avalanche for whatever reason. I know the game is going to be broadcasted on TNT, but it's not like this game is going on at Ball Arena in Denver. No, this is happening at the United Center on a Wednesday night in the middle of the week, a school night for kids. I do not understand it whatsoever, but on the bright side, Blackhawks fans, following tonight's game, each of their final 7 contests will either start at 6 p.m. Central Time or 5 p.m. Central Time, as they'll have a handful of games on the East Coast to close out the year. And then I believe their only other home games are going to be during the weekend. So they'll have those starting at 6 p.m. Central Time. So some earlier games going on to close out the season. Just got to hang through here tonight. I don't understand the scheduling whatsoever. But for Colorado coming into this matchup, as far as a look at the Western Conference playoff standings, the Avs look like they're pretty locked into the third playoff spot in the Central Division behind Winnipeg and Dallas. They're both they are currently 8 points back of the Stars for the third spot. So those two teams have pretty much separated themselves at number 1 and 2. The Stars, though, I got to give them a lot of credit. They have narrowed that gap between them and Winnipeg, who's been in first place, I think, all season long. They've narrowed that gap here to make it interesting to close out the regular season. But looks like the Avs are going to be in that third spot. They have a pretty decent gap over the St. Louis Blues, who currently hold the top wild card spot, but they're on a heck of a run. If you haven't been keeping up with what's been going down across the NHL, the Blues, as much as it pains me to say, have been kind of going on a 2019-ish style run here as of late. They've actually surpassed the Minnesota Wild in the wild card standings for that top spot. Minnesota still in a playoff spot as of now, but below St. Louis. And the Blues, they're only 5 points back of Colorado with 6 games left, though, on the schedule. And the Avs, they've been taking care of business as of late. They're 6-2-2 coming into this one, so I expect them to hold on to that final spot, but a lot of interesting playoff races coming down to the wire in the West for the Blackhawks. Obviously, we're not involved in those conversations whatsoever, and it's been a pretty brutal stretch for them as of late, as they've lost 10 of their last 11 games coming into this one, 9 of their last 10, with each of those 9 coming in regulation. And because the Hawks have been racking up regulation losses, and with the San Jose Sharks winning last night, Blackhawks fans, they now just have 1 fewer point than the Hawks, with both teams having 8 games left in the season. So they're neck and neck as far as who's going to have the best odds for landing the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft. But getting into the Blackhawks projected lineup here tonight, looks like it's going to be Ryan Donato, Connor Bedard, and Ilya Mikheyev serving as the top line once again, which puts a huge smile on my face, as I've expressed many, many times throughout the last couple of months. with the way Donato's been playing, with the way Mikheyev's been playing, and with the way Teuvo Teravainen's been playing as well, you got to have at least one of those guys, and probably should be two of them, along with Bedard on the top line. Bedard, by the way, is back playing the center ice position after getting a stretch at the wing spot when Frank Nazar was playing top line center there for a little bit. I do think it's a good idea for the Blackhawks to continue to give Bedard opportunities to play both spots over the next few years, while they're also trying to establish who are going to be his future line mates. But I like going back to him between Donato and Mikheyev to hopefully finish off the season for him on a very productive note, trying to become just the third teenager, I believe, in NHL history with back-to-back 60-point seasons, joining Sidney Crosby and Patrick Laine, should he record 2 points over his final 8 games, which I firmly believe he's going to do. The second line looks like it's going to be Teuvo Teravainen and Tyler Bertuzzi at the wing, in between Frank Nazar. Teuvo has been excellent really since mid-December. Bertuzzi has found his game over the last couple of weeks, so I like giving him an opportunity up in the lineup yet again. I think that should be how it is to close out the season, and hopefully gives him some good confidence going into the offseason after it's been a roller coaster ride for him in his first season during his Blackhawks tenure. Frank Nazar continues to just generate so many opportunities for himself because of his speed, seemingly gets a breakaway chance every other game. The finishing aspect, that's kind of eluded him at this point in time, but I firmly believe in his skill set, Blackhawks fans, that he's going to figure out how to bury those chances a little bit more frequently once he racks up some experience. The third line tonight looks like it's going to be a very fun one to watch. Landon Slaggert, Oliver Moore, and Lukas Reichel, with Oliver Moore, after making his NHL debut on Sunday, playing the left wing spot. He's going to get his first opportunity playing center here tonight, which, like Frank Nazar, like Connor Bedard, I like Oliver Moore having the versatility to play both spots, and I do think it's a good idea to maneuver him around in the lineup a little bit here to close out the season. I firmly believe, because of his wheels like Nazar, he's going to be a center long-term with the Blackhawks. It just allows him to range around the ice and make plays in so many different ways. A real responsible, defensively responsible-minded forward, plays with a good edge, has a high motor. I believe he's going to be a staple of the penalty kill moving forward. Another guy like Frank Nazar, who's bound to generate a lot of breakaway opportunities for himself. Very excited to see Slaggert, Moore, and Lukas Reichel, who I think is in one of the best spots in the lineup of the entire season for him here tonight. So really keeping my fingers crossed that he's going to make the most of this chance. And then Landon Slaggert, he's no slouch in the skating department either. Nick Foligno, Joe Veleno, Pat Maroon look like they're going to round things out. Maroon and Veleno have shown some nice chemistry here as of late. I think it's the right call having Pat in the lineup to close out his NHL career. As much as it sucks for Philip Kurashev, it's pretty clear he's not part of the future at this point in time. Veleno has started to chip in a little bit more offensively here as of late. And then Nick Foligno, you got to be having him in the lineup as the captain, obviously. But I think it's the right spot for him down on the fourth line where he can still help out this team, make an impact defensively, chip in the offensive zone, cycle along the boards as Pat Maroon likes to do as well, while still giving the kids the lion's share of the opportunities as it should be here to close out this season. Colton Dach, by the way, we did get an update on him this morning. 8 games left in the season. Sounds like he's back skating, but it was without a puck, if I read that post correctly. So sounds like he's still got a little bit of a ways to go before even returning to practice with contact. And with only 7 games on the schedule after tonight, I don't really see the reason in rushing him back unless he's 120% and the team is fully confident there's no risk of re-injury before the season comes to a close. And because he's only at this point, I don't really see that being the case. We'll see. Maybe Doc surprises us and returns for one of those final games, but I think it's pretty unlikely given the update on his status here today. Defensively for the Blackhawks, interesting. Alex Vlasic going to be on the top pairing tonight with Sam Rinzel, who had a really sharp NHL debut on Sunday, along with Oliver Moore, caught the eyes of a lot of people. I mentioned on the show the comments from Frank Saravalli, who's calling him basically a bona fide top pairing defenseman, someone who he believes isn't going to be playing any AHL games and will make the NHL roster out of camp next year. Feels like he can be what Brock Faber is to Minnesota here in Chicago. He spoke so highly about Sam Rinzel, more highly than I ever have even here on the show, even though he's always been right at the top of my prospect rankings. I've called him a top 4 defenseman. Frank Saravalli feels like he's going to be a number 1. And hey, I would absolutely love for that to be the case. And I've always talked about the upside that Rinzel has. 6'4", the way that he skates, his offensive abilities, plays well in transition, starting to grow into his own defensively and starting to fill out that 6'4" frame a little more. And that's going to continue happening as he gets older and older and older and gets more experience and gets stronger. I'm super excited for the future of this kid. Has a ton of runway and looked really sharp in his first NHL game. Did not look out of sorts whatsoever. Calm, collected, and had numerous opportunities to score his first NHL goal. Likely going to get over 20 minutes once again here tonight with Alex Vlasic. Even though Artie Levshinov isn't going to be on the top pairing, I expect him to probably play 20 minutes once again, maybe to even lead the team in ice time as he's been doing over the last week or so. Looks like he's going to be on the second pairing here tonight with Wyatt Kaiser. I think that's a really sharp duo. Excited to see how they're going to look with one another. Levshinov, as I talked about in last episode, officially has burned off the first year of his entry-level contract. Might not wind up making a difference in the future. Could wind up saving the Blackhawks a few bucks. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But he will be officially an RFA after the 26-27 season. And then Ethan Del Mastro and Connor Murphy going to round things out on the third pairing. 2 guys that have established some pretty decent chemistry with one another here late in the season. I like reuniting them with one another. But that does leave Kevin Korchinski as a healthy scratch here this evening. I talked about Korchinski's struggles on yesterday's episode. Go and check out that show if you haven't already to get my full 2 cents on the matters. There's been a lot of discourse going on during or in Blackhawks X-World, Blackhawks, Twitterverse, whatever it's called nowadays, regarding Korchinski as he's kind of struggled in his first 2 NHL games since being recalled. Kind of the gist of my thoughts. Got to remain patient with this kid. He's only 20 games. He's undersized compared to the rest of the kids coming onto the scene, making it more of a challenge for him defensively. But I do think it is the right call, giving him an opportunity to sit out a game, watch from the press box, maybe work on a few things and practice over these next couple of days with the coaching staff before assuredly returning to the lineup for if at least one of, if not both, of the Blackhawks contests over the weekend. And again, with just so many kids on the scene, 5 of the 6 on the back end here tonight, outside of Connor Murphy, he's the only veteran. You're going to have to make a tough decision with someone. So I think it is the right decision with Korchinski, but I know we'll see him in the lineup either Friday or Sunday when the Hawks return to action. And then Spencer Knight going to get the nod in between the pipes for the Hawks. And speaking of Spencer Knight, Blackhawks fans, that is going to take care of my preview of tonight's matchup with the Colorado Avalanche. But speaking of Spencer Knight, coming up in just a moment here, I'll talk about the Blackhawks' recent goaltender struggles between Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom, while Drew Commesso has been balling out with the Rockford Ice Hogs. Real quick though, Blackhawks fans, I got to talk to you all first about Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and complete control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center so that you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place and stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And what I personally love about Monarch Money is that instead of juggling multiple financial apps at the same time, you can just use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. So go and take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money by using the code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com, and you'll get 50% off on your first year. Again, that's code Locked On NHL in all caps when you go and check out monarchmoney.com right now, and you'll get half off on your first year. Segment 2, Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times wrote up a great article, as he always does the other day, talking about the Blackhawks and their recent goaltending struggles. And honestly, Blackhawks fans, while I knew both Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom had been going through dips in their play recently, I don't think I quite realized just how much it played an influence in the Blackhawks losing 10 of their final 11 games in the month of March after getting off to a nice 3-0-1 start. Because since March 12th, the numbers are pretty bad for the Hawks goaltenders. They have the second worst goaltending in the entire league, despite the team only being outshot 231 to 221 during that stretch, which ranks a modest 20th in the NHL. And while I didn't know those numbers until I checked it out in Ben's article, and I highly recommend everyone who's watching or listening to this, if you're not already following Ben, you don't already check out his articles, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. One of the best on the Blackhawks beat. Well, I didn't know these numbers were what they were, and I didn't know truly to the level that Soderblom and Knight were struggling, as I'll get into their numbers here during that stretch in just a second. I have talked on the show a couple of different times about how even though the Blackhawks have been losing as much as they have been, it's not like they've been getting dominated in the shots on goal department as much as they were earlier on in the year, where you see the lopsided 40 to 21 shots on goal totals or 35 to 18 or whatever it may be. It does feel like the Blackhawks have eliminated those huge discrepancies in that department over the last month or so, but they're still racking up the losses, and a lot of them are not all that close. And I think it's because the goaltending just hasn't been able to bail them out as much as, Arvid Soderblom did through the first maybe 3/5 of the regular season, whatever you want to call it, and to when Spencer Knight was first acquired by the Blackhawks, how well his tenure got off to a great start. Looking into these numbers here that Ben outlined in his article, since the Four Nations break, Arvid Soderblom has an .870 save percentage, Blackhawks fans, in 9 appearances. And one thing I have talked in the show about, voice is getting a little bit raspy there. One thing I have talked about with Soderblom is, since Spencer Knight has been acquired, and even a little bit prior to that, as Peter Mrazek had returned to being healthy and was starting to get some more regular starts. And then also the Four Nations break happened, which led to a pause in action. I think Arvid Soderblom maybe in hindsight lost some of his mojo during that break a little bit. His usage has definitely been different, and he was kind of treated like the number one there until the Blackhawks acquired Spencer Knight. And obviously, because Spencer Knight's upside, he has surpassed Arvid Soderblom and kind of the importance ranking in the Blackhawks' future. So that's led to Knight getting more of the regular starts as the number one goaltender for Chicago. I do think that's also influenced the way that Arvid Soderblom has played, but also at the same point in time, considering this is a year in which he's going to become a restricted free agent in the summer. He's also going to turn 26 years old, which isn't old for a goalie, but it's also starting to get to that point in time where you kind of are what you are, and the Blackhawks have to make a decision on him. Not necessarily the way I'm sure that he would like to be playing heading into a crucial summer for his future here with the Blackhawks. And then Spencer Knight, I talked about the outstanding start to his tenure. He gave up 3 goals or fewer in each of his first 4 starts and had a .928 save percentage during that stretch. Well, he's now given up 4 goals or more in 4 of his last 5 and has an .847 save percentage during that stretch. So definitely hasn't been to the level he was a little bit earlier in the month of March, but I also think the situation isn't doing him any favors, and it's really hard to put too much stock into anything bad that happens this late in the season with just where the team is at and how the roster is constructed right now with so many kids. Spencer Knight being a kid himself, as he's still only 23 years old, and also just coming to a completely different situation. The Florida Panthers were a very structured defensive team where they didn't give up a ton of high danger chances, and he was also utilized as the backup goaltender. Now he's being utilized as a starter. The Blackhawks don't have a lot of defensive structure. tons of kids on the scene, as I mentioned, who don't have a lot of experience with one another. It's a whole new organization for Spencer Knight. So it's like no reason to panic or freak out or anything. And it's only been a bad 5 starts for him. But I just thought it was some very interesting numbers. And I mean, 847 save percentage for Knight in his last 5 compared to a 928 save percentage in his first 4. And yeah, the Blackhawks, they give up high danger chances, but it hasn't been as wide open back there as it has been at times this season. So hopefully Spencer Knight will be able to kind of pick it up and close out the season on a good foot, as will Arvid Soderblom. Will be fascinating to see what winds up happening with him here in the offseason, along with Laurent Brossoit, who, of course, we haven't seen at all this year. But while the goalie struggles have been going up on the NHL scene for the Blackhawks, that has not been the case for Drew Commesso down in Rockford. And shout out to Scott Powers of The Athletic as well. He wrote up a great story on Commesso the other day, kind of talking about Commesso while he was out with an ankle injury, some of the mental health things that he was working on as he was kind of battling with obsessing too much with life at the rink and how he was playing in between the pipes and kind of letting that spill over to life at home, which for a hockey player is never good news. Just all kind of usual things that professional hockey players deal with, especially when you're at a young age, only 22 years old, like Drew Commesso is. And also one thing he mentioned is that while he's very happy that a good friend of his in Landon Slaggert has been called up to the NHL, it has now also left him living alone for the first time in his entire life. So just some things that Drew Commesso has been working on in his off the ice life while he was away with an ankle injury. That all seems to really be working wonders for him, as after returning from that ankle injury to begin March after missing the majority of February, Commesso went on an incredible run in his final 9 starts as he posted a 944 save percentage, 2 shutouts, gave up 1 goal just twice, and all in all, stopped 255 of 270 shots faced, and has now raised his season AHL save percentage up to 911 through 33 games on the season. And again, this kid is only 22 years old. He's not going to turn 23 until this summer in July. In his second professional season, yes, there were some hiccups earlier on in the year, but like we saw, I'm not comparing him to Arvid Soderblom, but their situations were similar. Soderblom last year and even the year prior, up and down, up and down, up and down the AHL and NHL because of injuries in the Blackhawks goalie department. So what happened with Drew Commesso this year wasn't a whole lot of stability in his life. Some of the things he talked about in Scott's article were affecting him potentially as well. And now he's found a way to manage that and is playing the best hockey of his professional career. It's why you never give up on a young goaltender. Things can change in a hurry for better or for worse. But for someone like Drew Commesso, who I've been super high on ever since the Blackhawks drafted him in the second round, I know he's clearly not at the level of Spencer Knight. He does not possess that upside. He's still not someone I would quit on in the future whatsoever. Still under contract through the end of next year, so you know he's going to be getting opportunities. Going to be interesting to see at what level, though, because, should Commesso close out the year on a strong foot, and who knows what happens with Rockford in the playoff series, or the play-in series in the Calder Cup playoffs, there could be a situation where they're wanting Drew Commesso to maybe get NHL time next year with Spencer Knight. Arvid Soderblom's going to be an RFA this summer. What's going to happen to Laurent Brossoit? The Blackhawks goaltending department is going to be a super fascinating one to follow throughout this summer. We'll see how things wrap up this year for Arvid Soderblom. Spencer Knight, we know, is the number one of the future here now, though. But with Soderblom kind of trending in the wrong direction to close out this year and Drew Commesso heading in the right direction, going to be really interesting to see what winds up going down this summer. But super happy for Drew Commesso for picking up his play here late in the year. Hopefully that continues to be the case for the Rockford Ice Hogs. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's show, still got to get into my thoughts on Taige Harding being the latest kid to sign his entry-level contract. First, though, Blackhawks fans, I got to talk to you all about Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, then crack into a great source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily nutritional value. Plus, they're packed with fiber to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Who doesn't love a good pistachio? I know I certainly do. I could literally sit there eating them and cracking them all day long. And whether you're someone who's sitting in an office or you're running between meetings or even dropping the kids off at school, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch by visiting wonderfulpistachios.com in order to learn more. Again, that's wonderfulpistachios.com to check it out today. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Here to start off your day. For your second listen, go and check out Locked On NHL, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. And you can easily find Locked On NHL right now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, more kids coming to the pro scene, Blackhawks fans. His 2021 third-round pick, Taige Harding, became the latest prospect to ink his entry-level contract yesterday, signing a 2-year deal through the end of the 26-27 campaign, as the contract will officially slide 1 year, as Harding will join on with the Rockford Ice Hogs on an amateur tryout for the remainder of the season. And Taige Harding, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he was the 91st overall pick in the 2021 NHL draft, third-round selection. That's still when Stan Bowman was the general manager. And this was an interesting outside-of-the-box type selection because I believe Harding came from, oh my gosh, I'm actually just going to go and look it up on my phone right now because if I forget it, the AJGA, no, that's golf. I'm getting my leagues mixed up, but he came from, the AJHL, the same league that Cale Makar came from. He was kind of an off-the-radar type of pick from Glasgow, England, but he's a big body, and he spent the last 4 years playing for the Providence Friars in the NCAA, 6'7", well over 200 pounds as a left-handed defenseman. Did turn 23 years old, though, back in January, so a little bit older, hence why his entry-level contract is only worth 2 years compared to the standard 3 years. But in his 4 years of college hockey playing for the Providence Friars, he tallied 40 points, 8 goals, and 32 assists, with a plus 25 plus minus rating. His senior season and college career, unfortunately, came to a close recently when Providence was knocked off 5-1 by Denver and Aiden Thompson in the opening round. As far as Taige Harding and his upside and his skill set offensively, I know I just went through his points. Offensively, that's never really what he's going to be known for. I think he's quite honestly in a very similar mold to Louis Crevier. Even though he was selected in the third round, he does have, I think, the higher of the offensive upside between the two, although Louis Crevier has showed me more in the offensive zone. I believe he has 3 goals this year than I ever anticipated, and I never really expected him to be an NHLer. That's kind of where I feel like Taige Harding sorts into this Blackhawks blue line pipeline just because of all the depth. But hey, as someone who's 6'7", listed at 240 pounds, doesn't have, the skating ability of someone like Ethan Del Mastro, but can maneuver around well enough out there. I'm interested to see how he's going to look against professional level players compared to the collegiate level. But the Blackhawks have done a good job developing big bodies over the years. I mean, Louis Crevier was a 7th round pick who, as I just said, I never gave him true NHL expectations. I didn't really even think he was going to make his NHL debut. And while I don't give him much of a chance to be a puzzle piece here in Chicago, he's already made it further than I ever expect. And they've done a really good job with developing him. Alex Vlasic, obviously, being 6'6". Sam Rinzel, I know he just got onto the pro scene, but these are guys who have big bodies, and the Blackhawks have experience with, Ethan Del Mastro is a big body on the back end. Even Isaac Phillips, who was a 4th round selection as a big body, they developed into a guy who was capable of playing pro games, right? So I think it was worthy of a shot to give Taige Harding an ELC, especially because it's only a 2-year deal. Like, it's a shorter term risk. Not that financially the contract would hurt the Blackhawks, but just from a contract numbers style of sense, I do think it's worth a risk. Giving Taige Harding an opportunity here with the Rockford Ice Hogs, I expect that's where he'll begin his professional career next season. It would have to be something crazy in order for him to make the Blackhawks opening night roster, but he's another guy who's got good size, got a big frame, can handle business in the dirty areas in front of his goaltender, along the boards, winning one-on-one puck battles, separating players from the puck, using that long reach of his. I honestly didn't get a ton of opportunity to watch Taige Harding in college with the Friars, so I am excited to see how he's going to look here moving forward and joining the professional ranks after signing his ELC with the Blackhawks. I don't mind the signing whatsoever. I think it was a worthwhile risk for general manager Kyle Davidson. But that's going to close out today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks if you haven't done so already. You like what I'm doing on a daily basis, please help me out by subscribing, hitting the like button. Hit me with your Mailbag Monday question as well down below in the comment section. If you're someone who has a question but are listening through an audio platform, can email lockedonblackhawks@gmail.com or hit me up on any one of my social media platforms. Till next time, go Hawks, everyone. We'll see if they can take down the Colorado Avalanche in this late night tilt tonight at the United Center for whatever reason. Until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.